One, two, three. Oh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Ooh, had some issues with the sound there. Can't really see what's going on. Let's just go back to there we go. And ooh, let's there we go. All right. Hello and welcome. Sorry for the delay. My name is Paul, and yeah, we are back again for some more Alteryx weekly challenges. Right, let's see what we got. Let's check that one. Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah, that has worked. Excellent. All right, so we are back now. Haha. Bit of a challenge trying to work out what's going on here. Still getting my head around the whole live streaming thing. If anyone actually watched last Tuesday, I didn't stream on Thursday just because we were. It was my birthday, so yeah, didn't stream. So let's see. I was having a look at the weekly challenge from last week, and unfortunately now I haven't got it. Where'd it go? Whoop, no. Oh, I'm in a bit of a rush here. I haven't. Let's drop that off screen. Don't need to see that. Yeah, so haven't got everything quite set up and running. I thought I had it, and then I changed. It's all gone out of whack. So here, where are we? Weekly challenge. There we go. All right, let's see if this will work. Whoops, shouldn't be a YXDB. It should be MD. Excuse me. Whoops. We'll get it there eventually. There we go. Let's see what's come through. Okay. Hasn't brought what I wanted. Anyway, let's do it anyway. So, last week I was looking at the optimization challenge that we had, and I was tripping myself up 6 ways from Sunday. I was overcomplicating it in the end, and what we should be looking at is, it's just the experience. I haven't used the optimization tool a lot, and I haven't used it that much. So, I did a bit of research, did a bit of searching about. Let's bring... whoop, I didn't want to do that. Things on screen, shouldn't be on screen. Yeah, let's go you. Alright, so if we go over to the Alteryx forums, so on the weekly challenges, that's where we're starting from. But what I'm actually looking for is, whoops, that's gallery, yep. I always forget this takes a while to log in. There we go. Optimization. So there we go. There's actually a post on the Alteryx forums, which is the Alteryx Tool Mastery explanation. And it's got a lot of really, really good detail on how we want to configure it. And what I was trying to do is I was trying to put the upper and lower bounds of how many flowers, in our example, appear in each individual as part of the constraints. They should actually be part of the options, or the O anchor. They're the decision variables that I should have been using. I think they're called the coefficients of the objective function, i.e. how many options do we want. And that was where I was getting things a bit wrong. So let's pop back and to Alteryx. So what we had is we've got our flowers, we've got our price of them. The constraint that I want to use is just the total price of the flowers. All right, so the only constraint we have is the budget of 950. So I'm going to bring in that, and that is going to be, let me remember what the format for that is going to be. No, yeah. There we go. So the format for inputting the constraint, where are you? There we go. It's just going to be the constraint, what we're looking at, the direction that it's going to be, and that's your equivalence or comparative item, and the right hand side. So it's what that is going to be. So let's pop back to Alteryx. So it's going to be constraint is the price, the direction is less than or equal to, and the right hand side is 950. Right, so that's the price of it. So that's going to be our option there. And we are going to bring in our optimization tool. So I was right with the optimization, I just couldn't remember how to configure it. And what we're going to see is it's actually a lot easier to configure and set up than I was trying to make it. So the first bit is we want our options. All right, and to set up our options, we need a formula. And that formula is just going to take the input of our values. We need to add a couple of columns. First is the lower bounds. And the lower bounds is going to be any of our flower colors. All right, so all of our flower colors are going to be a number of them, and we're between 4 and 8, and the filigreens between 1 and 4. All right, so our lower bounds is if the flower equals filigreens, then, and because we're making 10 arrangements, it's going to be 30. Oops. Else 40. And if, right, that's going to be an integer. We'll make another one, which is going to be our upper bounds. And it's actually going to be the same formula. So I'm going to go to the recent and saved expressions. Same thing. The upper bounds this time is going to be 40. And the upper bound for everything else will be 80. Again, integer. And the last one is new column of type. Now, our type is going to be what number we're coming out with. So we want whole numbers of flowers within those bounds. So that's going to be our integer. And the option for the integer is just a capital Y. Okay, it's going to be a string, so we're good. So that's our decision variables, our different options. The A input, right, is what we're deciding against. Right? So we're going to bring in a select, right? And with my select, actually I don't need to do anything on my select. I can just leave that going in. So I'm going to get rid of it. So now I get to configure my output. So I'm going to specify it as matrices. I want to maximize my objective because I want to get as close to that $950 budget as I can. But I am going to define my mapping. Right? So the variable column is going to be price. The variable column is flower, because those are the different options. The coefficient is price. Lower bounds is LB, upper bounds is UB, and the output is type. Let's add in all our browsers, hit run. So I managed to go through, and when I was building it out, overly complicated the entire situation, and hopefully, if I've remembered how to do it right this time. Oh no, why has that not worked? I have got something wrong. It is always something. I think that is supposed to be a lowercase I, is it? No. Oh, you think you remember it and you're good. and then it all falls over. Right hand side, types, let's go back up, 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 up. Yep. Binary, continuous, yeah, it is a capital I. Alright, so I'm going to make that a bit smaller, make sure it's not just a size thing. Constraint, make sure I've typed that price, yep, that's right. Okay, let's just check that one. Let me see. Right. And typically now I've forgotten what, oh. I think I actually need to drop that price, if I remember right. I'm just trying to remember whether I actually need to rename the price to variable, but I don't think I do. I think that's included in. Let's go back, check my completion. Yeah, so I dropped that. Why? Ah. Okay. So there was one other thing which I did forget. So what I've done here at the moment is I am using price as the variable, or I was trying to use price as the variable, but I'm also using the price as the constraint. So there's a clash going on there, which is what my error is causing. Well, this one's because I removed it. What I also need is to add in the variable that I'm going to do. So what am I going to do? I'm going to count, and it's just going to be the number of 1. Right, so I'm going to, every time that particular option is included, that particular coefficient is included, that gets added on. Right, and that ends up counting how many of the flowers we want. Alright. No. Why has this failed? So there's, yeah, that's working. So, we've got flowers, flower, count. So I'm just trying to remember, the count was a byte there, it's a count byte here, it's fine, type is an integer, it's a capital I, yep. So I'm comparing it to my workflow that's running, and I suspect, oh, there's a space there. I mean, have I spelt constraint right? I think I did. I don't think the lack of a space there should be causing an issue. But we've now changed 2 things, so knowing which one it was. No. Okay, so it shouldn't have a space, so that's good. So my constraint is there. Okay, so dense matrix, variables are in rows. So what's happening here is the constraints in rows is not what I was actually setting up. What I've got is my variables going down my table, and I haven't set that. So when you're setting up the optimization tool, when you do it, when you've got it, it's actually relatively simple. All right, our setup here is relatively simple. The catch is that you need to actually configure it very specifically. If you don't get that specific configuration right, we're going to cause issues and it's not going to come through. Right. So now we've got our value, which will match up to our output, and we're good. So that's last week's exercise, and so we've managed to do that one. We've got that going. It's a bit of a little trip up if you haven't been playing with the optimization tool a lot and you don't know what it is. So this time we can now move on to this week's exercise. Hopefully we can get through it this week in the time we are after. I need to finish off a little bit before 4 o'clock today, but not too much. But we'll have a fairly hard stop for our session. Alright, so this week's challenge, geographic information for major military installations, range of territories, listing of high elevation peaks in the US, filter for active sites, and answer each of the following questions. Which peaks ranks number 14? Which peak is closest to MIRTA site? And how many peaks are closest to a site in a neighboring state? Okay, that's interesting. So this is starting to use the spatial tools. And if you don't use the spatial tools a lot, this is going to be a challenge for you. It's not something that a lot of people get a good chance to use. So let's have a look. I'm going to create my folder. I am going to copy move that there, duplicate you, and I hate when it auto completes like that. No, silly Windows. All right, there we go. Whoops, you. Okay, so we want to actually start building out a view and working out each of the answers. So question 1 is, which peaks rank 14th when considering only the highest peak in each state? So in effect, we've got our high peaks. We've got 3 independent questions that we want to answer. Now the first bit is, okay, we have our data set, but it's not actually telling us what we've got. It's not giving us a nice clean look. We have a state, we have the highest elevation, we have elevation above sea level, and the coordinates. And it looks like, yeah, so we have 2 different two different fields. So we've got one, so on and so forth, is going to be our header field, and then the second is going to be our values. Right. So we need to split that out first. So to start with, we've got to do a little bit of tidying up, and I might only just get through the tidy up today. So I want to use a text to columns to split my peaks out into the 2 independent columns. But I'm actually going to use both a dot and a colon for my columns, and I can use both delimiters in the same split to columns and create those 2 fields. There we go. Run that. We now have 1 and 2. Right. I can clean up the fields later, but that's fine. The next thing we want to do is where it's got that number, that's actually going to be the state. And I also need to create a grouping for each of these fields. Right, so I'm going to use a multi-row formula to create my filled down record ID. So that is going to be a multi-row formula. I'm just going to move that down a little bit here. row ID. It's going to be an integer, and all I want to do is if column 1 is a digit, right, and only digits, so I'm going to use an expression of if regex match. We'll just make sure I'm typing it wrong. Right string regex. You find there we go. It's not quite right. You'll find that a lot of these flexible checks end up going back to regex. It just becomes so powerful for doing things. It becomes the quick way out of everything. But what I want to look for is any digit of any amount. Actually, let's make it of one or more digits. Then I want to have the previous row, which is the row ID, plus 1. Else, if it isn't a digit, right, so if it's not a number, then it's just going to be the previous row. Right, so I'm going to do a running count. So when I find a digit, then I'm going to increment that. If we don't have a digit, I'm going to leave it. So run. So now we've got our row ID. 1 goes down to the coordinates. There we go. And then carries on. Right. The next bit is I'm actually going to use that same regex logic. And I'm going to replace those numbers. Right. So I'm going to replace all those record IDs in field 1. It's going to be regex replace. There we go. Those two are what I'm going to replace. And I'm just copying and pasting to save retyping things. But what I'm going to replace it with is state. Right, because that's where that value has come from. Right, so the numbers are associated with each individual state. Alright, so on the way in, we have a number. On the way out, it has replaced the field. Wrong place. It's supposed to be replacing column 1. That's better. State, state, state. Right? So I've really quickly created those values for us. Now, I'm going to transform. I am going to cross tab. Right? And cross tab is going to... I'm going to move that up a little bit out of my way. Cross tab will create my table. I'm going to group by the record ID. So each time I have a record ID, they're all treated together. The headers is going to be column 1. The values are going to be column 2. Okay. And I'm going to concatenate them. So if I ever duplicate values for whatever reason, they're going to be kept. All right. So we now have a nice tidy table. Well, a relatively tidy table. We've got a lot of embedded white space, so let's go and tidy up that with the data cleansing tool. I'm going to do that on everything, and I'm just going to remove leading and trailing white space. I don't want to touch nulls yet because I won't actually want to see those nulls as they are. Cool, so that's cleaned up. The next bit is I'm going to deal with my elevation field. All right, so I want to convert this from a string with the FTA or the feet symbol into just a number. Right. So how are we going to do that? Probably the easiest way to do that is, again, using the cleansing tool. Right? And what we're going to do is I'm only going to do the elevation column. I'm not going to touch any of them. I don't need to worry about the white space, but there isn't any anyway. But I'm going to remove all letters and punctuation, right? Because that's just going to leave me my numbers. So we've now got, there we go, removed all that letters and punctuation really quickly. I'll come back to the coordinates in a second. All right. So the first question is which peaks rank 14th when considering only the highest peak in each state. Okay, so I'm going to create a path up the top. I'm going to put that into a container, and that's going to be question 1. And what we want to do is I need to sort it first before I sample. I'm going to sort it by state. Doesn't matter what order. Actually, no. I just want to sort it by highest peak in descending order. Right. Then I'm going to sample. I'm going to group by state. I'm just going to take 1 in each value. And then, right, so if we run that, we should see, there we go, we now have, we sorted by the right value. Nope, I should have been sorting by the elevation above sea level. There we go, that's better. So now, we just need to, one other thing I didn't check. At the moment, they're sorting them as strings. All right. Although I would have thought ones would come first, which is... Oh, they probably have, yeah. So it's sorted in descending order. So 8 comes before 7 becomes before 6. So I need to convert that into a number. I'm just going to manually set that as a number. That's going to be the elevation. I'm just going to use an int32. Right, so an integer, I know it's a whole number. There we go. And now, there we go. So now when we sample it, I've just had the thought I may not actually need to use the sample tool at all. I'm just going to bring in a unique tool for a second, and I just want to check, have I just got 1 peak per state? And if I've just got 1 peak per state, I can just sort that and select, yeah. So on the unique tool, all the unique values are kept through the U output, and in the D, we've got all the duplicate values, and we have no duplicates by state. Right? So there's 1 value per state. So all we need to do here is we can go down to row 14, and our answer is going to be Guadalupe Peak in Texas. So if we look at our results, boom, Guadalupe Peak. So instead of using a sample, I'm just going to use a select records. So I know I want record number 14. And there we go, Guadalupe Peak. And let's create the format so we've got our 2 columns. Oops, I don't want that one, there we go. So I've got 1 column called question, 1 column called answer. I'm gonna and go through, just keep highest peak, drop everything else. So options, select, deselect all, keep highest peak, rename that answer. Alright, so that's going to be question 1. We'll put a formula tool on, which is going to be question 1. And I think they're using that as, I'm going to guess it's a byte. Let's just have a look. No, they're calling it a double. Probably shouldn't be because it's an integer value. So I'm going to leave it as a byte. That's fine. There we go. So question 1, Guadalupe Peak. Let's just reorder them. Actually, I'm going to cut and connect it round. I'm doing that so I can put them in the right order. So I can have answer first, or question first. Right click and drag, there we go. Question comes first, then the answer. Alright, question 1, answer Guadalupe Peak. So, question number 2 is which peak is closest to a Metra site. Right, so this is where we're actually going to start getting into spatial analytics. So we've got all our Metra sites. They are coming through as spatial objects, so I'm just going to bring a browse tool on there so we can see them on a map. Hit run. There we go. Let's bring in one of the nice new Alteryx maps. I'm going to go for dark. Ooh, I can actually see it there. There we go. They zoom so much better than they used to. It's much, much better. I'm not actually seeing it very well, so I'm going to go over to the light. There we go. So you can see if we select Fort Meade, I have no idea where it is, Virginia. There we go. Let's just zoom in a bit. Let's go New York. If I select that one now, there we go. We should be seeing not very easy to see them. They're very small points at the moment, or very small values, so they don't show up very well. There we go. Still rendering, that's why. There we go. So if we select it, if I deselect it, picks another one, and then where'd it go? Let's click on it again. There we go, Syracuse. Right. So you can see them in there. It's just not very easy to see it. Let's go. All right. That's why, because we're seeing a couple out in the Pacific. And that's why we're seeing the entire world on that map. Right. So what we want to do is we want to find out which peaks are close to which site. So we've got a location for that. We need to go and convert our coordinates into a spatial point. And this is going to be the challenge. Right, so we need to pass them out again, because it's not going to be the simple latitude and longitude for our make points tool. Right. So what we're going to actually have is we're going to split our coordinates into two columns based on our comma. Right, so we're using a comma, we're using two. So we've now got, there we go, our north and our coordinates too. I'm going to copy my data cleansing again, paste it over here, drop it in. Right, so we want to clean up coordinates 1 and 2. We're just going to remove the leading and trailing white space again. Okay, so we now have cleaned north degrees and west degrees, and this is the bit that I don't actually know. I don't know what the coordinate system is. So, name of the point and its elevation, height of the elevation. Because what we need to do is we've got coordinate 2 and coordinate 1. So the Y field, that is going to be other way around, I think it is. Coordinates 1, 35 degrees north, yeah. Coordinates 2, but they are projected floating points, and that floating point system is going to be one of these other ones. Might be, no, I don't think it'll be that. So what I'm going to do So let's pop back to here. Oh, there was a website, I can't remember what it was. So there was a website that one of my colleagues used that had the name of all the coordinate systems. This is when having chat would be super, super useful. Yeah, downside of broadcasting to yourself. Okay, let's try. It's not what I wanted. That is. Yes. Right. Oh, not what I'm. Oops. That's not what I'm after. That is. Yeah. So I have to try and remember what that coordinate system was. They're not really what I'm after. Let's try that. It's not the site that I had. Cylindrical projections, conics, no. What I might try is I am going to copy those coordinates. Hey, there we go. Let's try this one. Right. Blah, blah, blah. Searching. Start with an arc map. Right. That's latitude, longitude. Right. So, because there are 360 degrees, decimal degrees are angles often measured with GIS data. Right, so this is what I think we're looking at. So the projection we need, let's go and find that. Angles on there. Oh, here we go. Most commonly used datums in North America, North American datum, North American datum 83, world. I'm going to try that. WGS 1984. I think it's that. Where did that go? Ah. Why? Let's try that one more time. State plane, NAD83, but there's a whole heap of different zones appearing there. And I don't know what any of them are. Let's see. Right, so that's North American datum. World jetting, right. So, unfortunately, I need to crack on for another project that actually pays my wages. So, I am going to have to call that there today. We've got partway through our challenge. We know what we're trying to create. We know where we are. Just need to work out how to convert the coordinate system of degrees north and degrees west into a projection for Alteryx to understand. So they are projected floating points. So I probably actually need to strip out the degree N and degree W. So I'll work at that. But we'll have a look at that on Thursday, and yeah, we'll try again then.